Welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast, proud to be the world's #1 community for brilliant childcare leaders. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Elif Childcare Insurance. Give Blake a call at 972-232-2258 to get a free quote on childcare business insurance today. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast, our hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Welcome to episode 35 of the Childcare Genius podcast.
We're your hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
And I'm excited for today's episode. But before we get to it, I wanted to share with you that our book, Advanced Childcare Business Strategies, is available and it's free of charge. If you live in the United States, we will ship this book to you free. We will even pay for the shipping. We want to get it in your hands to help as many childcare center owners as possible. A lot of tips in here. They'll help you strategies on expansion, profitability, and wealth creation. Just go to childcaregenius.com/books to order your book today. Absolutely free, U.S. customers only. Advanced Childcare Business Strategies. We want to help you. Nice and thick. There's a lot of stuff in here. You will enjoy that. So that's our gift to you for listening to our podcast. So we're excited to be interviewing a great friend of ours on the podcast today. This is part 1 of a 2-part interview. Part 2 is going to air next week.
We've been friends with Jennifer for many years, and she's a lot of fun to be around.
So Jennifer recently sold her schools. So we're going to talk with her about the complete process of building her schools, getting them ready. Well, not even ready to sell. Well, she talks about what happened with her sale in the podcast interview. But after she sold the schools, what she's doing now as well. So we're going to talk all about that in the interview. And we're excited. So let's get Jennifer on the line. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So good to have you. It's been a while since we've been in Miami. It's been probably about a year now. How are things down there?
Warm. Warm, but great.
Warm. Boy, you're saying that in April. Oh, no, it's still March. It's almost April. And it's going to be hot by the time the summer comes along.
Yeah, I'm already going to the beach in the weekends.
You're not going to the water, though, are you?
Sometimes, yes. This year.
Really? In March?
Yes. Which is not usual.
You got room down there?
It's not usual for Miami. I
got
do.
A spare bedroom?
For you guys, I always have room.
Spare bedroom? All right, yeah. We're going. We'll be down there tomorrow. We'll see you at night. Anyway, we're got an exciting podcast episode. Jennifer is a great friend of mine. Been friends for many years. Just absolutely love hanging out and talking. She's a great business owner. And I decided to put her on. We're doing a 2-part episode. So we're going to feature her this week. We're going to talk a little bit about her schools in Miami, which she sold last year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that process. We're going to talk a little bit about schools. And then next week, we're going to go into what she is doing now. So we're going to tease that at the end. So you're going to want to tune in next week to see what Jennifer's up to and how she can help grow your program. So before we start out, can you tell our listeners how you got into the childcare field and what you did before you got into the business?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life. Before I got into the childcare industry, I was in the real estate industry and the real estate finance industry. And in that industry, I had a mentor, and he owned a preschool or a childcare center with his wife for 19 years. He told me about the business, and I said, wow, one day I would love to own a childcare. I had never been in the education realm or anything like that. Fast forward a few years, I had to pivot after the Great Recession. But then I pivoted my business to providing help for people needing the help, with their mortgages and more mortgage modifications. So that did very well, but I knew I wasn't going to last that long. So I figured, okay, when the wave dies down for this business, that's when I'm going to go and buy my childcare business. And I did that. And fun fact, I did not know what a lesson plan was when I bought my first center.
There's some owners who still don't know what a lesson plan is out there.
That is true. And what struggles did you have building your business to 3 locations?
Well, I had various struggles. I had a lot of struggles, but I think my biggest struggle was I didn't know how to hire administration staff, primarily the directors. I was not good at it, so I had a lot of turnover with the directors, and I had to invest time and money, and then they wouldn't work out because I wasn't hiring the right people. It kept pulling me back into the day-to-day of running my center, managing my financials. I was managing my marketing. I was handling my IT, supporting the regional director. I was working 50 to 60-hour weeks, sometimes more. But when I grew to 3 locations, I was working on a reactive basis because I didn't have processes, I didn't have systems, there was no accountability. And 50% of my time I spent on the phone with my administration team, approving or giving direction or answering questions, or, hey, I need to buy paper. Can I buy paper? Yes, you can buy paper. So it was a lot of that, taking time away from me throughout the day, putting out fires as well. And I was just wearing many hats in the company, and I wasn't delegating enough.
Awesome. Well, that's very common amongst early childcare owners for sure. So let's talk about your first year. What year was the year you first started, and what was the hardest part of year 1?
So the hardest part of year 1, since I didn't know anything about the industry, the staff that were in the center had been in the center for about 5 years. So it was getting the families to like me, the current families that were enrolled. The school was at about a 60% FTE, 55, 60% FTE at the time. But since I didn't know what I was doing, I felt very insecure, and it was getting the families to like me. It was getting the staff to trust me. And since I didn't know anything about the industry, I didn't know how to do staff scheduling. So I was constantly getting asked, what class am I supposed to go into now? When do I go to lunch? So that was a big struggle for me until I finally learned how to do staff scheduling. And also my assistant director, which was the right-hand person of the owner, she quit a month after I purchased the center, and I had graduation 2 months after that. The company was barely making any profit. So it was very, very tough times. It was challenging times, but with hard work, mindset, dedication, luckily I persevered.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you tell us how your child care center was different from other programs in the area?
I can. My centers were based on the approach and the core value and core focus that children come first. No matter what, every decision has to be made around what's best for the child. My schools were they were extremely clean. I even had these ceilings vacuumed on a biweekly basis. I was very picky about having my centers very clean, and people noticed it. We were always innovating with technology. I had the security in my centers. I had 2 double door entries with biometrics. So it was very high tech. Families loved that. We were very passionate about the children first mentality, like I mentioned, the family environment, family communication. We were constantly communicating with family. We had a academically advanced, very fun curriculum. So our children graduated reading, writing, doing math, but also they loved it as well. And we had a lot of hands-on activities. We were high quality. We were considered high quality because we were an accredited center. All my centers were accredited.
Nice.
Nice.
Not bad for somebody who come out of the industry, who's never been a teacher, never been, usually a lot of them come from that realm. So good job. So you sold your schools last year. Can you tell us why you decided to sell? And if you did anything different to maybe prepare your schools to sell?
So I didn't decide to sell. I was approached to buy my centers. A company wanted to buy all 3 of them. So it wasn't a decision that I had made to sell, but what I said was, I'm not selling, but for the right price, I'll consider it. what I did different in why I got approached. I ran my centers for high quality. I ran my centers with my core values, with the core focus, with the children first, doing what's right and doing the best that we can, always full enrollment, working hard to make sure that the company was financially successful. Because the more financially successful your company is, the more you have, the more money you have to spend to give to staff, to give to buy supplies. And that was very noticeable. But what I did in my company is I made sure the financials for each school, like the company structure, I set up my companies not so much for sale, but I set them up for success. I needed to know what each individual center was, how profitable it was, how successful it was. And before, when I bought my third center, the other two centers, the expenses were commingled, and I would pay expenses from one center that really had to do with the other center. All that was a mess. So I cleaned that up. I made sure my financials were in order. I created systems. I created processes. There was a lot that went into that.
Well, sounds like you did a really good job.
Yeah.
And we teach that in our university to our students about going after and finding schools to buy that aren't particularly for sale. And so I love that. It also shows that you ran a good school, that somebody wanted to buy it without really without knowing your center, just it knows it was well run. And I'm glad that you were able to sell.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, what we did in addition to all the processes, we started documenting all the repetitive tasks. And that was a requirement, owning 3 schools, because it wasn't the same when I owned 1 or when I owned 2. But owning 3 schools, I needed to make sure that I had, processes documented, that we were setting goals, yearly goals, quarterly goals, and it's giving that direction to the managers, to the directors, to know what is it that I need to achieve. So we would have monthly meetings, we would have weekly meetings, quarterly meetings. And that's kind of when I discovered EOS, when I was working those 16-hour days and I had a big mess in my company. I discovered EOS. I don't know if, I know you're familiar with the EOS operating system, not sure about your audience, but that really helped me organize and structure my company as well.
Yeah, we love EOS. And I want to just say something before we move on, that how proud I am of you. I started coaching you when you had 2 centers. And I've worked with you. I remember the purchase of your 3rd school, working the numbers with you, and then through your sale. And you just, we were friends before, we're friends now. And I want to say how darn proud I am of everything you've done and accomplished. You're absolutely amazing and a great role model. And I've learned a lot from you, probably as much from you as you've learned from me.
And I have to thank you as well, because thanks to you and to Carol, you really helped me as well. There was times that I had 5 teachers quit and I called you crying, and what do I do? And then you guys coached me through that. You coached me through, the yearly rate increases. You helped me set up my whole CRM platform. So I got so much value of working with you and Carol. Thank you.
I'm glad you brought up that you were crying, because I remember that day, and probably the only person who's ever seen Jenny V cry, because you're like face of steel and you're hardcore. But boy, this business could bring you to your knees, can it?
Yes, it can. There's certainty. Well, I think all businesses, right? No business is easy. Every business has its difficulties.
Yeah. I know, but something about childcare teachers that they can get on that very last nerve sometimes, and everything can go in the state licensing, and sometimes things just happen all wrong at the same time. It's happened to all of us, and sometimes you need that good cry. And boy, it's sure nice to have a coach to call to that'll listen to it. You can't cry to your employees, you can't cry to your teachers. A lot of times your spouse don't even want to hear it. You could always call your coach. You could always call your coach. Yeah.
So it's awesome having a coach and having someone to go to that not only understands what you're going through, but has been there and can put it in a completely different perspective and not take the situation personal, but more in an objective business approach. And after that call, I was like, okay, fine. I was drying up my tears.
You haven't cried since.
So thank you. Oh, come on. I am human, Brian. I am.
What was the hardest part about selling your schools?
Oh my gosh. So the hardest part was keeping it a secret.
Oh,
It was keeping it a secret. That's very hard. I wanted to make sure also that the company that was buying my centers shared the same values that I did. I wanted to make sure that I was leaving my staff and my kids in better hands than my own, that for a company that can provide them more than what I can. That to me was very important. Communicating the sale to my staff actually was after I sold, because it happened like December 31st, 2021. It was the last day of the year. And we closed the school for a week. So I wasn't going to tell them before they go on vacation. And communicating that to them, it was very shocking. They didn't understand. It was very difficult. Also dealing with the lack of communication and clarity in the contract terms. The terms that I had with the buyers, there was some ambiguity and there was a lot of back and forth, and that added a lot of stress. So anyone selling, make sure that your terms are crystal clear, because that gave me a little bit of stress at the end of the year.
You just gave me an idea for a podcast in the future. That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
And I can certainly help you with that, because I can talk about my experience on what went wrong and what I could have done different.
Yep. Actually, we have you back in the future to talk about that. So I like to sometimes ask a question without prepping somebody. So you didn't know this one was coming, but what advice would you give somebody who's maybe new in the business, who's starting out, maybe a new center owner, maybe a new multi-center owner, a couple years in the business? What advice would you give them to really help them propel their business? Any advice that you can give?
Absolutely. For me, a big part of my success, I owe it to my coaching group. I owe it to the coaching that I received from you guys, is joining a group that is doing what you're doing. It's in the same industry that you can learn. Maybe they're applying, a great summer program that you can also learn from, and you don't have to you don't have to put the program together from scratch. There were so many changes that I made because of this group, because of the coaching group, that my bottom line increased incredibly. So we were one of the few centers in the area that was full during the summer. Usually all other centers, they would drop enrollment about 30%. We were super full, and we would do extra programs. We would charge extra. So we would make a killing in summer. And I got those ideas from the group.
You know what's funny, Jen, is of all the people I've ever coached, and I have coached hundreds and hundreds of owners around the world, you're probably the one person who really took it so serious. Every call we had, you took notes, and every call you did everything I suggested. And you did, I do this, Brian, I did this, I did this, and this. What do I need to do this? And you were so focused and crystal clear in your mission. You took your call seriously. You're always on time, and you never no-showed me, and you always learn. And that's why you were full over the summer, because you were the go-getter. It was you. The coaching program is great. It's a support system, but you did the work. Anybody can join a coaching program. You have to do the work to succeed, and you did the work. So congratulations. You reap the benefits with your sale, and now you're living the high life, enjoying your good life. And we're going to talk next week about what you're doing. You got anything you want to tease about what we're going to talk about next week? Or you just want to leave it a mystery? What do you want to tease? Anything?
I can tease a little bit. Another thing that I did that I implemented in my company, which was another game changer, and again, I learned this through my coaching group, was the implementation of EOS in my company. That's what it changed my life. It made me get my life back. So there you have it. That's a teaser.
So we're going to talk about EOS next week. I love EOS, followed the model for many years, and I'm so glad that Jenny is doing EOS. We're going to talk a lot more about this next week. So next week at this time, we're going to release a podcast, which will be part 2, talking all about EOS. So Jenny, we will see you next week. And thank you so much for coming on the Child Care Genius podcast today. It's been our absolute pleasure to have you aboard.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast. It's really a pleasure. And I love you guys.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, I just love her. She's just amazing. And if you're like Jennifer and would like us to coach you to greatness, we would be honored to do so. So just visit childcaregenius.com/university to sign up for a free coaching call with me. There is no obligation. You are guaranteed to come away with 2 to 3 concrete things to improve your business. So I did a call with somebody out west on the West Coast just 2 weeks. No, it was last week. I did a call with somebody. So she comes on the line. She goes, Brian, I'm in danger of closing my business. And I have not increased my rates in 3 years. I'm losing $3,000 a month and I can't make payroll and I'm in trouble. A 30-minute call with me, we were able to flip this thing around. We put together a rate increase letter. It's going out next week to her parents. She's going to be raising her rates. And she's going to go from losing $3,000 a month to making $7,000 a month, just for something that she was afraid to raise rates for the last 3 years. And there's people out there that you might be one of them that maybe just needs a little bit of a push. Maybe a coach can help you do things and see things that you've never seen before. That's what we could do on these calls. So a free coaching call was worth $100,000 change in her business. And now she's a coaching client. We're working with her one-on-one. We're going to change her whole business in the next year. So what can we do to help your business? Again, childcaregenius.com/university to sign up for a free coaching call. Let us change your life. So this concludes episode 35 of the Child Care Genius podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your busy life to spend a little bit of time with us.
And just a reminder to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss a future episode of the Child Care Genius podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Child Care Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Child Care Genius community.